Hello everyone, and today we're going to be talking about code talkers. Now this is a bit of a sideways tangent. These guys haven't got any new tools or anything like that, but it's just a deck that I've picked up recently and have really enjoyed playing. It's pretty much as simple as that. It's got a lot of versatility, can go first really well, completely locking your opponent out of special summoning using the extra link as well as the Ibli. So basically the main idea of the deck going first is that you're going to link your monsters or co-link your monsters in a way where you can link all your way across and use both extra monster zones to lock your opponent out of link summoning completely, and then summoning Nightmare Corruptor Ibli onto your opponent's field to lock them out of special summoning unless it's a link summon. So basically you're limiting them to only link summoning and then preventing link summoning. So basically you're stopping them from special summoning altogether with no negative impact on you whatsoever. And then going second, you've got real big powerhouses such as the Access Code Talker, the Avramax, the Firewall Dragon, as well as forms of protecting and boosting those monsters like Transcode and X-Code Talker. Typically, if you tend to get interrupted setting up your U-Link, even just summoning one of these powerful boss monsters supported by some of your other Code Talkers is usually enough to get the win. So we're going to go into some gameplay here. We're going to display the U-Link and we're going to show some other sort of ways of winning games. If you like what you're seeing, you want to see anything more, go ahead and subscribe. It doesn't cost you anything. It really does help me out. And you can leave comments down below for what sort of cards, tech options you use in a deck like this, because this is supremely customizable and extremely budget friendly. Again, there is only a handful of URs in here that are actually core to the deck, 6 in total, and even 4 of those even I would say, can be swapped out for something more free-to-play friendly. So very, very budget-friendly deck and very effective game-winning Diamond Warby deck here. Let's get into some gameplay. Alrighty, getting into game 1 here. We've got a pretty solid hand here with a whole bunch of extenders and starters. The 4-Mud Skipper there, when sent to the graveyard for a link summon, will search our deck for level 5 or higher. Now the code monsters, the code generator, micro coder and things like that can be used in the hand as link material when summoning a code talker. So we're going to use our 4-Mud Skipper and our micro coder in a link summon for code talker. 4-Mud Skipper is going to grab us a level 5 or higher monster from our deck. Parallel Exceed is going to special summon itself to the field, and micro coder is going to grab from our deck to our hand our main starter card, which is the Cynet Codec. Without this card, you're not going to be able to complete your combos. So Parallel Exceed here on summon is going to summon another Parallel Exceed from the deck, and CR Caver will also summon itself out to the field. So we have a lot of materials to work with. We activate our Codec and then summon out our Transcode Talker. That's going to allow our Codec to grab us an Earth monster from our deck. Transcode Talker will resurrect the Code Talker in our graveyard. Now using it and our code generator from our hand, we're going to summon out the X-Code Talker. Now, Cynet Codec is going to grab us a Wind monster here from our X-Code. Code Generator will send a Cyberse monster from deck to graveyard, and X-Code Talker is going to lock our opponent out of a main monster zone. So they cannot summon anything to that zone. We send our Dot Skipper to the graveyard, and we grab the Link Extra Flyer to the field. Dot Skipper, when sent to the grave, will summon itself. Then we summon out our Access Code Talker, which is going to trigger our Cynet Codec to grab us a Dark monster, and our Access Code Talker is going to be boosting itself up to 5,800 attack points. So we're going to grab the Nightmare Corruptor Ibli, which is of course one of our main starters. We're going to go into Talkback Lancer here in the other extra monster zone. Code Talker inverted then to this zone here. Code Talker inverted on summon will summon a Cyberse monster from your hand that it points to. Then Codec will grab us a light monster. We grab our converter, which is a free extender, and we're going to summon Ibli to the field. Now here we do make a small mistake. What we should have done is we should have used these two in a link summon to go into the Shooting Code Talker, which then would have given us a few more options and completed a more complete U-Link. Instead, we go into the Bay Links a step too early. Now the Corruptor Ibli is going to summon itself out to our opponent's field, locking them out of all special summons except those of link summons, and our Bay Links is going to grab our field spell. We're still going to complete the U-Link, however, we just need, it's just not going to be as perfect. Summon out the Converter and then use these guys to go into the Trigate Wizard. The Gachiri then is going to negate by links to summon itself, and then link summon into the Code Talker here. And that Gachiri is going to make our Access Code Talker completely unaffected by any card effect until the end of the following turn. This is the U-Link. The only difference here is this card would have been a Bay Links, would have been more powerful, as it doesn't point up, so our opponent can link summon to this zone. So we haven't completely locked them out, unfortunately, but again, we've pretty much done as much as we can. Transcode Talker here is going to protect our X-Code Talker from being targeted and boost them both up by 500 each. So we've got a pretty beefy field here. We don't have a lot of actual interruption, but we have a lot of protection, so our field isn't the easiest thing to break here. Our opponent's got that Fateful Adventure. They're going to grab the Water Enchantress and then discard it to the grave so they can use its effect to search their deck for the Rite of Aramasir. Rite of Aramasir, of course, cannot be used at the minute, so what they're going to do is use their brain and try to crash the Corruptor Ibli into one of our link monsters. That's why we've got the field spell. We can use the field spell to reduce our monsters' attack points to 0 so that they tie and nothing is destroyed. They do unfortunately have the ability to tribute summon over the Ibli, which, you know, not a lot of decks do, but this guy had to give up one of their extenders just to get that done. Now they can finally use their adventure cards. They're going to summon it to Token and the Griffin. They're going to summon it here as well, another Kieran from their hand. Now this monster zone's locked out, so they have to use the materials on their field before they can do anything else. They cannot use the Lulu just yet. So they're going to be sending a trap to the grave. Then they're going to Exceed Summon, summoning out the Virtual World Phoenix Fan. Try to get rid of it on our Access Code Talker, trying to banish it there, but it doesn't do anything. Now the Virtual World Gate as well attempts to get rid of another card, trying to negate its effects, but our Gachiri makes us completely unaffected. We don't need to do anything like this. So they're going to send the Chuchi to the graveyard to summon out the Lulu. They don't have a ton of options because their field is so clogged up because of all of these random cards. They're going to go into the Sword Soul Sovereign. In their head, they think they're going to use that to break our board a little bit here. They're going to go and use their Ching Ying's effect to banish a monster on our field and one on our graveyard. They choose to get rid of the Trigate Wizard here, as well as the Transcode in the graveyard. Trigate Wizard, of course, being a massive threat to them, would have just banished their Ching Ying. Now they're going to go for the Baron de Fleur here. They're going to try and activate it to get rid of our field spell because none of our monsters can be targeted or destroyed. And swings back to us. Now we're not going to do anything fancy here. We have the ability to extend, but we don't need to. Going to take out the Ching Ying, going to take out the Baron de Fleur, and then take out the Fan. Our monsters are just too big. Fan would summon some virtual worlds from the deck for him to extend, but that's why we've got Access Code Talker. We're just going to clean up the rest of his cards, and that would have been game. Our opponent did try to timer stall us a little bit, but that's hardly the point. But yeah, we were able to just completely just walk all over his huge field, and then we were going to destroy all of his follow-up. We didn't want to destroy with the access code early. We wanted to get rid of the Baron de Fleur and get rid of that Ching Ying and stuff first, and then we were going to nuke the rest of it. But yeah, no, our opponent just had no chance. There was no way they were getting past an unaffected, a protected access code talker with the resources they had remaining. It simply wasn't feasible. But yeah, very interesting game number one here, showing off the U-Link and some potential, as well as where it can go sort of wrong, but even in it going wrong, cost our opponent a ton of resources. So let's get into game number two. Already getting into game two here. We have a pretty decent hand. We've got the Sea Archiver. Unfortunately, we don't have a way to go into our Cynet Codec, so we do need to play our opening hand a little bit differently here. We're going to go into our Code Talker here and summon a Parallel Exceed as well as the Sea Archiver back out to the field using their effects. So we're going to grab two more monsters here. That gives us more than enough resources to go into something decent at the very least. We've got that Transcode Talker now, which is going to resurrect the Code Talker in the graveyard. Then using our remaining monsters, we're going to summon out the Firewall Dragon. So this isn't exactly a ton of interruption here, but we have three pieces of proactive interruption, as well as our Transcode Talker and Firewall Dragon being untargetable. So we're not exactly frail. We'd still have a bit of a decent enough field here. Our opponent's going to go for that Skullcrabat Joker. We go to Ash it, just trying to prevent them from building up. Of course, he has the freaking Call by the Grave here. We decide that Skullcrabat Joker is not worth the impermanence. We're saving that imperm for something more impactful, which you're going to see. So that's fine. They stop our Ash. He searches his deck for the Wisdom Eye Magician. Wisdom Eye Magician, of course, being able to search out any of his other magicians. as long as he has another one on the field. So he has the purple magician there as well. So he goes for the double iris, pendulum summons out 4 different magicians here. So he's got a full field of monsters here as his first play. He's going to exceed summon into the Time Star Magician. This guy has some pretty decent effects. We decide we don't want to deal with that. We're just going to bounce it before it gets the chance to activate anything. Then he goes to link summon into Electromite, and again, we don't want to be using that or dealing with that Electromite. That's what we save the Imperm for, so now we're going to be stopping that as well. So there you go, even just in 2 pieces of interruption, being able to completely shut this man down. The double iris magician here will pop itself to basically search his deck for a pendulum graph card. He's going to grab then the Time Pendulum Graph, but remember, our opponents cannot be, our monsters, sorry, cannot be targeted by card effects. They just can't be targeted. So the Time Pendulum Graph does nothing against us. We're going to normal summon out the Nightmare Corruptor Ibli. Nightmare Corruptor Ibli then link summons into Salamangreat Balinx. That's going to search our deck for the field spell, as well as summon out our Ibli to our opponent's field, which will lock them out of any summoning if it's not link summoning. So that suits us quite great here. Summon out the Ibli, Balinx then grabs a field spell. We're not planning on going for lethal this turn, we're just trying to soften him up and deal with his resources. We attack his Electromite, his Time Pendulum Graph destroys our Balinx because it can't target our other monsters. So we don't even care about that. We weren't even going to attack the Ibli anyway, we were leaving it there, but he does destroy it using his purple poison. Take out the Electromite for 1200 points of damage, and then take out the Harmonizing Magician. So our opponent has to just pray that the card they top deck is enough to turn this whole thing around. Unfortunately, it isn't, so our opponent just scoops it up here. They have nothing they can do to stop us. And yeah, that's just another example of how even just having a little bit of interruption or having a protected field, if you time your interruptions well, you can win. Again, it wasn't exactly an amazing hand we had. We didn't have any way to get into our codec, which normally we do. We played quite a lot of ways to get into it. But this is to show off that you don't need to do the U-Link to win the game. You don't need to have loads of negates to win the game. You're just going to bounce their cards back to hand, protect your field with transcode and xcode and things like that, and just win from there. So, pretty straightforward game. Let's get into game number 3. Alrighty, getting into game 3, and we're going second this time. We've only got 1 hand trap, but to be honest, we're not feeling all that bad about this opening hand. We've got plenty of options here. Our opponent's going to go in for the standard adventure plays here, setting up their token and their fateful adventure, grabbing themselves a Griffin Rider, discarding an ad libitum to the graveyard. So we're playing against the adventure branded Despia deck. They're going to grab out their Readable Dragon. Doesn't look like they had anything else they could do here, but this is still a somewhat formidable board from our opponent. We do have the Signet Codec here, and we're going to summon our Microcoder to then use it alongside our Code Talker. We could, yes, have normal summon the Salamangreat Gazelle, but I wanted to keep this card in hand for later on whenever we're using our Balinx. Because we already had the codec, Microcoder has another effect where if it's on the field when it uses material, not only can you search a Signet spell or trap, you can also search your deck for a level 4 or lower monster. So we were basically going to try and use that as bait, or at least an additional search. Signet Codec will grab us a Dark Monster, Code Generator will send a monster for Deck the Grave, and Microcoder is going to grab us our Signet Optimization. So that's a really powerful card, turns all of our Code Talkers into Armades, and gives us an additional normal summon. So our Dot Skipper here, when sent to the grave, will summon itself to the field. Then we're going to go for our Salamangreat Balinx. Now Balinx is going to grab the field spell from the deck, except it's not. To be honest, I was pretty happy with that. There's a lot stronger cards they could have hit with the Veiler there. We go into Transcode, which grabs us the Gachiri from the deck. We're going to activate our optimization to see if it baits out the Griffin Rider, but it does not. Transcode then will grab the Code Talker from the graveyard, except it will not. That's when our opponent decides to use their Omni Negate there with the Griffin Rider to pop our Transcode. So situations like this where you want to have all of the extension in the world, we sort of misplay a little bit with our Ibli there instead of summoning it to a zone where we could revive Transcode, but it doesn't matter. We go into Balinx, we summon out the Ibli to our opponent's field, banish a monster to summon out our Scriptron, and then link summon into the Code Talker Inverted. Now Code Talker Inverted is going to grab us, basically allows us to special summon a monster from our hand. Or sorry, it would do if it was in another zone, but the Scriptron will shuffle our Microcoder back into the deck, and then we grab the Cyber's Converter off of Codec. We use Converter and Code Talker inverted to go into the Trans Code Talker. I believe I would have been able to use his effect again, except it says you can only use this effect of Trans Code Talker once per turn. I didn't read that correctly at the time. So this could have been something else, but honestly, it doesn't matter. All it needed to be was a Link 3 that we could summon out the Gichiri with, so the actual monster it was irrelevant. Gichiri makes our Access Code Talker completely unaffected by our opponent's card effects until the end of their next turn. So dealing with a 5300 attack unaffected monster that's just going to destroy your whole field isn't always easy, especially when it's got the Armades effect. So we're going to take out all of the adventure cards, we're going to leave him with the Ibli here, forcing him to try and find a way to play around it. Now, he's going to do the same thing all branded players do in this situation and go into Verte Anaconda, going to activate it to send his branded fusion. That's what they all do. It is extremely predictable, so that's why you're going to hit them with the impermanence. You're going to stop that Verte Anaconda. Now, not only can they not use its effect, they cannot use branded fusion this turn. So he's going to have a bit of a brainwave here. He's going to go for the branded opening to grab the branded in red off of his Aliber, but he's going to activate it now instead of waiting until next turn. He's going to grab the Tragedy, fusion summon here using all 3 monsters to go into the Guardian Chimera. Guardian Chimera will allow him to pop 2 cards and draw 1. Despian Tragedy allows him to search his deck for a card here. I don't think he was reading the Gichiri, but that's one of the things. Like, you have so many different cards with so much text that your opponent won't read them. They just will not. It is going to happen all of the time. We draw 1, our opponent activates Maxi right out the gate here, so we decide, you know what, we're just going to beat your ass. We're going to banish from a graveyard. He's going to protect our branded opening. We don't care, we're just going to do it again. And basically that's game. So we pop the Chimera, swing for 53, and that's game over. And that's the joys of having a deck that is naturally so complicated. If you don't know what you're doing, your opponent certainly doesn't know what you're doing. And the Gichiri in particular, nobody reads the Gichiri. They just don't. It happens all of the time where they're simply not going to read your cards. And an unaffected 5300 beat stick that can destroy all the cards in your field is a very difficult thing to get past. He did have an out in that he could have set his branded in red instead of activating it. That would have helped him a lot. It would have dealt with the Access Code Talker. But then we still had the monsters in our hand that we could have used to get around that. We weren't out of options at all. We could have extended a ton more and still taken them out. So yeah, that's pretty much it for the game there. Let's get into the next one. Alrighty, getting into game number 4 here. Actually, we're going to open up with the Signet Codec. Normal summon Dotscaper so we can link summon into our Code Talker here. This is one of the earlier games with the deck, so there are a couple of misplays in here. But again, nothing super detrimental. I'm gonna point them out as they go along. Our opponent's gonna go for an Effect Failure here and negate our Code Talker, which does literally nothing to us. So I'm glad that this is like within the first couple of games of the deck, but we're going up against someone who also clearly doesn't know what they're doing. So that's fine by us. We're going to grab a few cards here from our deck. Trans Code Talker then is going to make its way out here, allowing us to grab the Code Generator from our deck. It's going to revive our Code Talker from the graveyard and allow us to link summon here into the Access Code Talker. Access Code Talker then goes in the other zone, and Code Generator would typically send your Dotscaper, but because we've already used the Dotscaper, we're instead going to be sending something else, and that is the Spinny, so that we can use it later on. Signet Optimization will allow us to normal summon out our Corruptor Ibli, which if I had been smart about would have also been able to resurrect Transcode. We're going to link summon into we linked into Talkback Lancer instead of Salamgrave Balinx for some reason. We could have used Balinx and then summoned the Spinny from the grave, but you know what, it is what it is. At this point we just commit to the Ibli and then the protected Transcode Talker and Access Code Talker. So right now, so long as Transcode Talker is co-linked to a monster, this card and the monster it points to cannot be targeted by card effects, and they gain 500 attack points. And again, that in and of itself is really powerful as well. If you've got an Imperm here as well, our opponent's got the Aliber there. They add branded opening, implying they already have branded fusion. They link summon here into Verte Anaconda because they can only link summon because of the Ibli. So again, you're pigeonholing your opponent down a specific sort of series of plays, which in this case they definitely don't want to be doing, but they're playing the Shadol version of the deck, so they just wanted rid of the Ibli so they could go for that Grass Looks Greener. Every single time I play against this deck, they have that Grass Look Screener. Every single time. It is nuts. But our opponent, they're going to chain like 5 us here. Windy, Beast, Tragedy. They have a whole bunch of cards that are going to activate here. They got the Aerial, which is going to banish 3 of our Link monsters, really hurting our access code follow-up. And the last card here that activate is the Shadow Core. So basically, Shadow Core is going to add the Shadow Fusion from their deck, graveyard back to their hand. Aerial is going to banish the 3 Link monsters from our graveyard. Tragedy is going to grab him an Aliber from his deck. The Beast is going to let him draw one, and Wendy is going to special summon Squamata to the field face down. Now he's going to activate Fusion and chain to that Fusion the Reshadol Incarnation. So this is going to flip his Shadow monster to face up attack mode. Now Squamata, when it's flipped face up, will target a monster on the field and destroy it. Now, I hope you've worked out the problem there quicker than our opponent has here, because they realize they cannot target our monsters, so they're forced to destroy one of their own. They still have a few plays here. Their Fusion monster, whatever this says, is going to permanently negate our Signet optimization. Their Shadow Dragon's going to pop our field spell, but the Squamata is forced to destroy itself because it cannot target either of our monsters. So we're getting rid of at least one of our opponent's cards here. They don't have a lot of follow-up because when they activate their Verte Anaconda, that's when we flip the Imperm. I'm going to stop that Fusion summoning from happening as much as we possibly can, so no branded Fusion for our opponent here at all. They have no choice but to pass it back to us with 1 card face down. Now, of course, remember the access code talker can pop cards without being responded to. Our opponent realizes that there's nothing they can do about this, and they pretty much call it quits. There's no card really in their deck that could have summoned on my turn, unless that was branded in red that was set. There was nothing they could have done, and it really is as simple as that. But yes, very, very straightforward game. It was one of the earlier games of the deck, so there were a few things in there that weren't quite correct, but I still wanted to show it off, purely because the idea of just summoning Transcode Talker and summoning something to co-link with it is such an old strategy that I was so excited that it still works in like the modern game. That was crazy to me. I was expecting to lose these, but it just kept on working, which was nuts. I'm not saying it's going to be good enough to win every game, but I'm saying that it is better than you think. Even just that, but you've still got, of course, the U-Link, the Ibli, and all of these factors play into just wearing your opponent down. But yes, that's the last game here. We're going to dive into the deck profile. Alrighty, so this is the deck we're currently playing with. There isn't one recipe for Code Talkers because much like Dragon Link that we posted before, it's super versatile, and that's part of why I love it so much alongside Dragon Link. It's just one of those decks where it's just, there's no like, oh, you have to do these plays and make these combos and do this specific thing in order to win. I just like these decks where they're just taking 40 cards, they're saying there's a deck of cards, go nuts. And I love that. It helps you learn so much as a player because you're forcing yourself to engage actively with a flowing game state, as opposed to pre-formulating a plan, pre-playing the duel in your head. Because then when things go wrong, you don't always have a follow-up. If I were to give you, oh, you guys need to open up one of these 3 cards to do these specific combos, and then you didn't open up those cards, I can guarantee you that unless you're already very familiar with the deck, or unless you're just like a really good player, you're not going to be able to properly formulate a decent board. I mean, you saw in the last game there, that was one of the first games I actually played with the deck, and you saw the misplays. You know what I mean? It's one of those things that it takes a little while to learn and pick up, so don't pick it up and expect it to be amazing right away. It does take a lot of practice, and it takes a lot of customization too. Again, this isn't the first version I started with. This is the one I settled on after playing it a good bit. So take this as a baseline, do whatever you want with it, mix it up. I've got as many one-of starters, extenders, and things in here as I possibly can, because I love the variety and having loads of different targets for a codec. But yes, generally speaking, do what you want with it, but this is my version, and I'm going to talk you through my version of it by first removing all of the hand traps, so we can actually look at the deck itself. We're playing the double Veiler, we're playing the double Maxi, the double Ash Blossom, double Call by the Grave, single Crossout Designator, and double Imperm. So there's 11 slots. You can do whatever you want with. You can play whatever hand traps you want. I would recommend playing Ash and Call by the Grave because the deck does have a massive weakness to Maxi. You may even want to play triple Ash and play Crossout Designator, have at least like 6 stops to it there. it may be definitely worth looking into, as well as potentially anything else you can think of. But Maxi is a bit of a weakness to the deck, so you want to be able to counter that. Luckily we didn't come across it too much, and when we did, it was usually too late into the game to make a difference. So yes, this is the actual deck itself. Now, what is the main sort of plays? The one thing that, so what you're trying to do is you're trying to establish the extra link. So the extra link is when you have monsters that are co-linked all the way from one extra monster zone across a U shape to the next extra monster zone, and you're taking control of both. And then what you're also doing is summoning Nightmare Corruptor Ibli to your opponent's side of the field, which says that so long as this is on your field, you cannot special summon unless you're link summoning. So you're locking your opponent out of special summoning except link summoning, and you're taking control of both extra monster zones so that they can't link summon. So the idea is that when you're going first, you're completely locking them out. When you're going second, you're just summoning Update Jammer, going into Access Code Talker and beating their ass. It's as simple as that. You're just going to completely slap them. That's what you're doing going second. It's super simple, possibly protecting it from with the likes of Transcode Talker or something like that, or Xcode Talker. But it's a lot simpler going second. But going first, the extra link can be quite difficult to establish. And what are some of your primary resources in doing so? Your primary resource is Cynet Kodak. The Kodak is definitely the most powerful card in the deck. This is what makes the deck go. Basically, anytime you summon a Code Talker monster, you will target that monster and add from your deck to your hand a Cyberse monster of the same attribute. You can do each attribute once per turn, so 6 cards in total you can search off of this. So this card is completely broken. Play 3 of it, absolutely. Microcoder as well, when it's used in a link summon, will search for your Cynet Kodak. Lady Debug will search for your Microcoder, which will then search for your Kodak. So you have plenty of ways of getting into this card. There's at least 9 copies right there. Then you've got your 3 copies of Cynet Mining, which is basically just search for a level 4 lower Cyberse monster. So you're essentially running 12 copies of this card. So you will see it very consistently. This is the card that makes the deck go. What is the rest of the deck then? Extenders. The rest of the deck is just extenders and then a couple of little core pieces for combos. We're going to start from the start here with our Dotscaper. Dotscaper, when sent to the grave, will summon itself. You're going to do that using the effective code generator, but honestly, however you get it to the grave, it resummons itself once per duel, so very easily accessed. You'll use this every single duel, very easy accessed extender. Format Skipper is one of your normal summons. Whenever it's used in a link summon, you'll search your deck for a level 5 or higher Cyberse monsters. You're going to grab one of these 3 dudes, all of which are very powerful extenders. Microcoder as well as, so Microcoder, Code Generator and Code Radiator, as well as the other code monsters if you want to play them, all have an effect where they can be used as a link material in the hand so long as the monster you're summoning is a Code Talker monster. And they all have effects that activate whenever they're used for a link summon. Microcoder's effect when used for a link summon is that he will search your deck for a Cynet Spell or Trap card. So you're going to search for Kodak. If you already have Kodak, you're going to search for Optimization. So really solid extender. Link Infraflyer just special summons itself to a zone a link monster points to. It's just a wind attribute extender to be searched off of this. Cyberse Converter special summons itself if all your monsters are Cyberse. It's a light attribute extender to be searched off of Kodak. Ibli, we've talked about, whenever it's normal summoned, so you can target a link monster in your graveyard and special summon it to your field so that it points to this card, which is a decent effect. I honestly always forget about that effect because her main effect is that whenever you use her in a link summon, she then summons herself back from the graveyard to your opponent's field. And that's where her lockdown effect takes place. So she is one of your primary cards going first. Super powerful. Sea Archiver, whenever a monster is summoned to a zone that a link monster points to, this guy will summon himself from the field or from the hand or graveyard. So a water attribute extender to be searched. Code Generator will be usually searched off of Kodak whenever you summon your Transcode Talker. It's an Earth attribute. Whenever this guy is used in a link summon for a Code Talker, you will send a Cyberse monster from your deck to the graveyard. Normally your Dotscaper or your Spinny, depending on what you have access to, but it's almost always your Dotscaper. So very powerful. Then we're playing the 2 Salamangreats here. So Salamangreat Gazelle, whenever a Salamangreat is sent to the graveyard, you can summon this guy from your hand. Normally it'll be your Balinx. Whenever your Balinx is sent to the grave, you summon Gazelle from your hand. Gazelle will send Spinny to the graveyard, and Spinny will will summon itself back to the field so long as you still control the Gazelle. So it's a bit of like a free card-ish combo. If you have Gazelle in hand, you will go into Balinks on the field with something else. Balinks goes to the graveyard. You bring your Gazelle out from the hand. Gazelle sends Spinny to the graveyard, and then Spinny resummons itself. So you're basically getting a 2-for-1 deal there on extenders. So very, very powerful. Lady Debug on normal or special summon, search for a level 3 or lower Cybers monster. It's a great starter because it can search for your Microcoder. If you already have your Microcoder, then it can also search for basically any of these other core cards or core extenders. So Lady Debug is definitely the best normal summon in the deck. And we got that royal finish as well. Code Radiator, just like the other code monsters, can be used in the hand for a summon. It is a water attribute monster to be searched from your codec. And that's pretty much it. Its effect is whenever it's used in a link summon, you reduce one of your opponent's monsters' attack points to 0, which isn't as relevant as the other effects, but still sort of, it can come up, especially going second. Mathmech Sigma will summon itself from the from your hand to the field if there's no monsters in the extra monster zone. So he's a good sort of like combo opener, very easy special summon. He's a light monster to be searched from codec as well. So he's relatively straightforward. Scriptron, level 5 or higher water monster, so searched off of your format skipper or your codec, or basically anything else. But he can banish a Cybers monster from the graveyard to summon himself from the hand, and whenever he's sent to the graveyard for a link summon, you shuffle one of your banished Cybers monsters back into your deck. So he sort of like shuffles back the card that he banishes or anything else. Parallel Exceed, this is quite possibly one of the best extenders in the deck. It's a level 8 and it's a wind monster, so it can be searched off of your format skipper and is very easily searched from Cynet codec. Normally when you summon your X code talker, you'll search for this guy. If you already have it, you'll then go for your extra flyer. But Parallel Exceed is an amazing extender because whenever one of your link monsters are summoned, you can summon this guy from your hand to that zone that it points to, and then whenever you successfully do that, you can summon another Parallel Exceed from the deck. So again, it's another 2-for-1 deal on extenders, except it's a bit more accessible. And the last of the extenders here is Gachiri at Ignister. So this is super powerful. You saw this in the gameplay a couple of times. It can summon itself from the hand quite easily just by negating one of your face-up Cybers monsters. Then when it's sent to the graveyard, you target one of your monsters and it's unaffected by your opponent's card effects until the end of their next turn. So you're going to make your big hard hitters like your Access Code Talker, your Mechna Crusadia, and your Firewall Dragon all completely immune to your opponent's card effects. So this guy is amazing for that purpose. Earth Monster, so he's easily searched. Level 8, so he's easily searched. So great card overall. We've got our mining to search our deck for any Cybers monster. We've got our codec we've already talked about. Cynet optimization, basically so long as it's face up, when your code talkers attack, your opponent can't use card effects, so it turns all your code talkers into Armades, which is phenomenal. And then we have the Salamangreat Sanctuary, which is summoned off of Balinks. Balinks, when summoned, will grab you Sanctuary, and this card is here, and not just as a free +1, but also to stop your opponent from just crashing off of their Ibli. So normally what your opponent will try to do is switch this card to attack mode and attack one of your monsters just to destroy it. When they do, you can use Salamangreat Sanctuary to reduce the attack points of your link monster to 0, and then you gain life points equal to its attack points. But basically, because both it and the Ibli will have 0 attack points, neither of them will be destroyed. So it just stops your opponent from crashing with the Ibli. It means that it's forced to stay on their side of the field. And you saw it in the gameplay when they tried swinging in the Talkback Lancer. So pretty straightforward, very easily accessible, and a very key card to keeping your Ibli combo alive. Getting into the extra deck, we have the Talkback Lancer, the Link 1 here. It's only really useful for its arrow. You'll usually finish off your extra link with this card, so it points straight down. Your opponent can't just take advantage of another zone, so it's pointing straight down to your monster zone. It can also tribute a Cybers monster to summon a code talker to its arrow, which sometimes comes up, but it's not super relevant. Got the Balinks on summon, grab your Sanctuary. It also enables your Gazelle combo, and that's pretty much it. Code Talker as your primary starter card. You'll want any Cybers monster and then like Microcoder in hand. This card gets everything running because it allows your microcoder and your code generator and everything like that to proc in your hand before going any further. It's also a dark monster, so you can search for your Ibli from it off of your codec. So we run 2 of him for consistency purposes. Update jammer for your access code OTKs. You're going to basically summon this guy, use him as material for your access code talker. Then your access code talker can attack twice, and very solid enabler of OTKs. So he does come up whenever you're going second. Code Talker inverted on summon a Cyberse monster from your hand to somewhere he points. He's also a light monster, so that he enables your Cynet codec to search for light monsters like your Lady Debug, like your Converter. So a nice little combo is you can use whenever you summon Code Talker inverted, you activate him as chain link 1, then you activate codec as chain link 2. So when it resolves, your codec resolves, you can grab any of your cards from your deck, especially your Lady Debug. So you usually grab Lady Debug from deck, then on chain link 1, your Code Talker inverted will summon the Lady Debug from the hand to the field. So not only do you get the +1 with the extension, you then get the Lady Debug who will search your deck for another Cyberse card. So very, very positive card advantage off of that. Trigate Wizard, very powerful card. For every monster co-linked to him, he gains an additional effect. The main ones are 2 and 3. If he's got 2, you can banish a card in your opponent's field, which is really solid, and a spot removal. And if it's 3, you have a quick effect to negate and banish the card that activated. So this guy is pretty nuts if you can get 3 monsters linked to him. Again, a really old structure deck card, which I was really surprised by. This guy's really cool. Always been a fan of him. Trigate Wizard's pretty neat. You got your Xcode Talker for your U-Link package. He protects anything he points to and gives them 500 extra attack points, so that's pretty neat. That does come up. He's a wind monster to search for your wind extenders, and he also locks your opponent out of an extra monster zone, so that's really cool as well. Transcode Talker is the main Code Talker monster. Basically, it can summon one of your Code Talker, a Link 3 or lower monster from your graveyard to a zone of points to. So it basically allows you to recycle one of your Code Talkers, which is nuts. It's definitely how you get a lot of your plays going. It's an Earth monster to get searching for your Earth monsters off of codec. It also, if it's co-linked with something, so if it's pointing at it and the other monster's pointing back, both monsters become untargetable and both monsters gain 500 attack points, which does come up and does win you games. So that is very important to remember. He's not just a monster reborn for a link monster, which is enough reason to run him. He also provides that additional protection effect. Unlike Shooting Code Talker, which is here purely for his attribute and link arrows, so he's here as a water monster to search for your Scriptron and stuff, and his link arrows mean that he is pretty good in completing your extra link, but that's the only reason for him being here. He provides no other value. And then we have our 3 big boss monsters. We have the Firewall Dragon. For every monster co-linked to it, once while it's face up on the field, you'll bounce cards on the field and in the graveyard back to the hand. So you're going to send your opponent's cards back to the hand for the number of cards co-linked to it. And also once per turn, while a card that it is linked to is sent to the graveyard, you get to summon a Cyberse monster from your hand. So he's got like a built-in extension as well, like during your own turn. So if you like link summon using something it was pointing to, you can then summon another Cyberse from your hand. So that's really, really cool. Mechanic Crusadia Avramax, you've seen this guy enough times on the channel. It cannot be targeted by card effects, and your opponent's monsters can only battle this guy. When they are battling him and they are special summoned, he gains their attack points. So it's basically indestructible by battle. They're not getting over it. It's got that crystal wing effect, which is really neat, and it's untargetable from card effects. So if you pair that up with the likes of the Xcode Talker, which then protects it from destruction as well, you've got a pretty hefty combo there, a 3500 attack beater, which is going to be very difficult to get rid of. And lastly, the big bad boss of the deck, the Access Code Talker, will banish a link monster from the graveyard to destroy one of your opponent's cards. You can banish each attribute from the graveyard once per turn, so that's a total of 6 possible destructions. Your opponent cannot respond to his effect activations, and when summoned, you will allow him to gain 1000 attack multiplied by the link rating of one of the monsters used as material. So if you're using a Link 3 for him, which you normally will be, he'll be 5300 attack. He'll be attacking multiple times. If you use Update Jammer, he's popping a bunch of cards. He's protected by Transcode Talker. He's protected by Xcode Talker. This deck turns Access Code Talker into a real menace. But yes, that's the full breakdown of the deck. Of course, there's plenty of ways of doing it. I've been rambling on here long enough, so I'll not keep you any longer. That is generally how it works. Pick it up, test it, practice with it. That's the only way you're going to get any good with it. I'm not going to give you a combo, because if I do, it's not going to work. You're going to try and rigidly apply it, and it's going to fall apart somewhere, and you're not going to know what to do next, and then it's just going to fall apart. So for now, all I'm saying, pick it up. It is super budget friendly. Give it a try. See what you like, what you don't like. Change cards out, put cards in. Look at other people's profiles and compare them, and sort of combine them into something that you enjoy playing, and take it from there. Guys, that's pretty much all I have to say on the deck. Again, any questions, any concerns, anything you want me to address, leave them in the comments down below, and subscribe while you're there. I'll catch you all in the next one.